Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has tasked Prime Minister Nawaf Salam with forming a government of 24 ministers aiming to implement reforms and restore confidence in state institutions. Meanwhile, Hamas announced the release of 3 Israeli detainees as part of a ceasefire deal, while Israel released 183 Palestinian detainees, with further negotiations anticipated amid tensions and international focus on resolving the broader conflict. Join our special coverage on Qnews, where we tackle the latest developments in the Middle East.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين.
وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has signed a decree accepting the resignation of Prime Minister Najib Mikati's government and assigned Prime Minister Nawaf Salam with the task of forming a new government. The President then, along with the Prime Minister designate, signed the decree establishing a new government composed of 24 ministers. European Union Ambassador to Lebanon, Sandra De Wailo, has expressed her support for the new Lebanese government and welcomed Prime Minister Nawaf Salam's commitment to its reform agenda. That comes as she posted on X platform that reforms are vital for Lebanon's future and asserted that the EU will continue to support Lebanon. She added that the EU relies on all officials to not only adopt but also implement these reforms. The Egyptian Foreign Ministry has affirmed that Egypt welcomes the formation of the new Lebanese government and looks forward to new government gaining the confidence of the Lebanese parliament. In a statement, the ministry highlighted that values the formation of the new Lebanese government, which will contribute to achieving security and stability in Lebanon and restoring its rightful regional stature. Prime Minister Nawaf Salam has affirmed his government aims to restore confidence between citizens and the state, Lebanon and its Arab neighbors, and Lebanon and the international community at large. Salam stated that the government will collaborate with Parliament to implement the Ta'if Agreement and pursue financial and economic reforms. He emphasized that the Cabinet's focus will be on constructive collaboration rather than conflict, stressing that reform is the only path to genuine salvation. For further analysis on the current situation in Lebanon amid the formation of the new government, we are joined from Cairo by the editor-in-chief of Al-Shuruq newspaper and Egyptian Senator Ahmed Eddin Hussein. Good evening to you, sir, and welcome to Qnews. Let me here ask you, how important is the timing of this government formation for Lebanon's stability?
Upon you all, greetings to you and your esteemed viewers. It is a very important matter as Lebanon for 2 years suffered in a political vacuum, and the Mikati's government of the Carter government today, when Said Nawaf Salam managed to form a government which is in a very political development, particularly following the election of Joseph Aoun as a president of the republic. There are dramatic changes that would lead to the start of a new phase of such a country that suffered of chaos and followed by a very drastic war with Israel that led to the destruction of most of the territories in Lebanon.
Uh, Prime Minister or designate Nawaf Salam has said that the new government will work on restoring trust between citizens and the state. How is that, or how will he be able to do that?
There is a bit during a vast majority of the population in Lebanon. Following the dramatic changes that led to the fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime and cutting the connections between Iraq and Iran, as well as the ceasefire agreement signed between Israel and Lebanon that was a gross strike to Hezbollah. That seems that there is a core shift in the political landscape. Even it was as before the start of the war. Hezbollah used to be the main political player in the southern, and he was holding what is called a disruptive one-third that hinder the election of the prime minister unless he is approved. Changes took place following the Pages operation and the assassination of Hezbollah's leaders in September last year, following the al-Assad collapse in December the past, that indicates a great shift in the power balance, that some operators of Hezbollah withdrew from Lebanon. So that led the elections of the assignment of the prime minister that weren't pleased by Hezbollah, and the only main candidate, Tangier, and before that, Gibran Bassil, none of them got the approval, and we moved on. So the face of Joseph Aoun and Nawaf Salam, and they are not considered by, or rather appeased by, the dual Shiite Hezbollah and Amal movement. So there is a historical moment. Some would believe to execute it to Al-Taif agreement, which is the first time to return to the agreement spirit in 2016, when Hezbollah, along with the Amal movement, imposed the political will on the presidential resolutions in Lebanon. So, but we have to wait a little bit, and the Shiite component could be considered as an opposition, and the Shiite ministers aren't from Hezbollah nor Amal movement, and therefore the Lebanese prime minister has a vision, and we all know that he was a very prominent judge and the president of the ICJ and the Lebanon's representatives in UN, so that he has a great respect internationally. So he is helpful to get financial support from the Gulf and political support from abroad to have an economic reform and correct the relations between the state and the people, and to start the reconstruction following a devastated war that made Lebanon to live in the worst economic crisis since 2019. I remember the uprising took place in Lebanon, looked to destroy the political landscape and topple the confession system.
From your point of view, what does the formation of a 24-minister government under Prime Minister Nawaf Salam signal for the Lebanese political landscape?
As I said previously, this government, we may say, is an autocratic government. Naturally, aren't as I said, are component and comprised based on Al-Taif agreement and a number of the government posts specifically for each sector. But it could be this government compared to the past 10 years that we could look at a conservative as it used to be. So the cabinet formed by 24 ministers, headed by Nawaf Salam and Deputy Tariq Masri. Ghassan Salam has returned to be the Minister of Culture and Minister of Defense Mission Mansi, Interior Ahmed Al-Hajjar, Minister of Justice Haidar, and other posts in the government that we may had the opposed before the fifth minister. He is basically belong to
Right.
Amal or Raza Siri, so
Right.
the Shiite component basically, which is used by the destructive part of the previous government.
Yeah, very clear here from Cairo. That was the editor-in-chief of Al-Shuruq newspaper and Egyptian Senator Ahmed Eddin Hussein. We thank you so much for joining us on Q News. And now we move on to the latest developments in Gaza. Well, welcome back. And Hamas has announced that the release of 3 Israeli detainees as part of the 5th batch of the first phase of the detainee exchange in Gaza ceasefire agreement. The Israeli army confirmed receiving Eli Sharabi, Ohad bin Ami, and Or Levi after Hamas freed them in Deir al-Balah, Gaza. In return, Israel released a group of Palestinian detainees under the terms of the agreement. Meanwhile, one of the Israeli captives has urged the Israeli government to begin talks for the second phase of the ceasefire deal, signaling the possibility of further negotiations. For further analysis on the situation in Gaza, as the 5th batch in the first phase of detainees swaps take place, we're joined from Cairo by former Assistant Foreign Minister, Ambassador Dr. Mohammed Higazi. Good evening to you, sir, and welcome to Q News.
Thank you very much, Mona. My pleasure.
Our pleasure. Now, how does the exchange of detainees impact the broader political and diplomatic landscape between Israel and Hamas?
I think it brings us to the rationale of the situation before the very irresponsible declarations, either from the American President Trump or the Israeli leaders over the past few days. I think the successful exchange that we have witnessed today shows us that only through negotiation and the peace or the ceasefire deal that has been struck between the two parties, we only have a safe path towards successful negotiation and settlement of the dispute between Hamas and Israel. The fifth exchange of prisoners, which we have witnessed this morning, manifests that the two parties are willing, if there is a framework agreed between the two parties under the auspices of Egypt, US, and Qatar, is the only way forward. And the second phase, which will be say negotiated as from tomorrow, the two parties are able, with the help of the facilitators, to reach common ground as it has been announced in the overall ceasefire agreement that has been struck between the two parties. So let us concentrate on what is meaningful, what is applicable, and what is in conformity of the agreement between the two parties, far from the unusual, unsane, if I want like to use the term, or unrealistic proposal that came across the borders on the couple of days. I guess that we are in a successful track if the three facilitators pressure the parties forward, and I think Israel knows very well what it did not honor in the first phase of the agreement. On the second phase, they should fulfill their commitment, particularly in relations to humanitarian assistance that has to be enter the caravan, the medicine, oil and gas, and the many other medical and food items that hasn't been entered over the agreement of the first phase. So the second phase is in front of us, and let us pull it to lead us to a peaceful negotiations towards reconstruction and a settlement of the political horizon towards the two-state solution.
Now, as reported, we've heard from a released Israeli detainee calling on the government, the Israeli government, to begin negotiating the second phase of the deal. How did you, or what's your take on that? How did you interpret that call? How did you understand this call from a detainee?
Well, I think the call of the detainee and even the Israeli criticism of the health condition in which they have found the three releases this morning. What did they expect? What should the prisoners under the siege of Gaza, construction of hospital, should look like? This is the outcome of the Benjamin Netanyahu and his right-wing settler government manipulating the situation, stop trying to attain political gains while you have failed on the military front. So what we are all wishing is that we need to honor the ceasefire agreement on the three phases. Unless we honor the agreement, and actually from the history we know very well that Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu himself did not honor any of his agreements, neither towards Oslo, nor toward Cairo agreement, nor toward White Plantation, and many others. So the key to the success of the second phase is to pressure Israel to honor its agreement. Who will pressure Israel but the international community and the legal framework that he has signed and the internal Israeli public opinion? We have all to push towards the release of prisoners, the adherence to what has been agreed between him and Hamas under the auspices of the United States, Egypt, and Qatar, so that we can attain the reconstruction phase, which Egypt has called it with the United Nations missions in the region. And we can, after this reconstruction, which Egypt wants it to happen in the presence of the Gazian in their territory, move towards the political horizon. Without the political horizon, we will keep falling again into the same trap of violence.
Now, Your Excellency, what are we expecting of challenges that could arise in the second phase, particularly with the return of Netanyahu from Washington?
Well, I think he should realize that whatever he did in Washington shouldn't really pull him out of this agreement, because this is the only way for the return of the prisoners. And this is the only way to bring in peace and stability at the Israeli borders. And the only way to bring back the settlers to their homes in the cover of Gaza. Otherwise, the rest of the release of prisoners is not secure. The Israeli army, which is very exhausted, the Israeli economy is very exhausted, the public opinion is in the streets of Tel Aviv every day almost. The whole international community has shown support to the political horizon and the two-state solution, and all in support of the second phase. Enough of manipulation, enough of coming with strange thoughts and attacking the region and its countries and people, like what he did and the Israeli officials regarding the Saudi on the past few hours, when they mentioned Saudi Arabia in name, and they will need to learn that there is no peace, as the Saudi very important declaration, very honest and clear and precise, no normalization or recognition of the state of Israel unless the Israelis recognize the state of Palestine.
If I may ask you here, of the second phase of negotiations and why it is a win-win situation for both Israel and Hamas.
I think for the Israelis, they know very well, like 79 prisoners, and most of them are from the military, are very important card that they need to return it back to their public opinion by saying that we have honored our agreement to bring back the prisoners. Destroying Hamas is not a matter that is attainable through military means or through support from the United States. It's only through negotiation and giving a hope at the end of the tunnel, meaning that an Israeli commitment to the two-state solution that will allow the authorities. We don't need really the Americans or the renewal of occupation or any international force to conduct Gaza. The Palestinian Authority is there. The sixth ministerial declaration of the ministers of foreign affairs met in Cairo last week was very clear, enabling the authority. And I think Hamas will give up arms when there is a commitment towards the two-state solution. If you may recall the IRA issue in Northern Ireland, they hand over their arms to the United Nations when the Good Friday Agreement was signed. So there were a hope at the end of the Irish Tunnel during this very important negotiation. I think Europe and Britain in particular can say something towards what I was saying, introducing ideas and thoughts of how can we move further. The Palestinian Authority and the PLO is the legitimate partner to the international community in Gaza. Egypt and the United Nations in reconstruction campaign, along with the international partners, Arab and non-Arabs, or international community at large, and then a political horizon where the two-state solution are committed by the party through an agreement which is secured by the United Nations Security Council resolution. And I think this is the recipe which is included in the Hamas-Israeli ceasefire agreement, reconstruction, and a political horizon. We have to drag the situation using this very important document towards the fulfillment of the two-state solution and the tranquility to a region which I hope, Mona, one day will introduce a structure of political security and development, a hierarchy. If we have this stability created to the interest of its people, of all the nations living in this region, like what happened in Europe after the Helsinki process, we can claim a Middle East secure for its people and its nation, not only for Israel.
Now, finally here, Your Excellency, how do you take, or what's your take on Prime Minister Netanyahu's hinting all the time at war if the agreement falters? Reflect Israel's strategy towards Hamas and his Gaza's plan?
I think what is required to confront this claim by Netanyahu that only through war he will achieve. He spent 15 months killing people, women and children. 70% of the 55,000 Palestinians killed were women and children. You know very well that Hamas is underground, and the appearance we saw over the handover that Hamas still exists, and it's not through armed forces that you can prevail over an idea, over a liberation movement. You only have to talk to them. The IRA, as I gave an example, were always claimed as terrorist organization. This terrorist organization, or ETA in the Basque region in Spain, unless there is a dialogue that respects the whole community consensus on the two-state solution and respect the human dignity. I think Israel, when it is facing now through Netanyahu political right-wing arm, an image that has brought it to the International Criminal Court, which has issued a statement to claim him a war criminal with his defense minister. This, and even the International Court of Justice examining Israel being claimed as ethnic cleansing country, and this genocide that is committed by Israel is insult, not only to the Israeli and all the Israelis, but to us all in the international community, where we have seen the genocide on camera. And we have to understand that by telling the truth, you're ending up wars not by abasement, like what we saw in the Congress, what we saw from President Trump, or the silence we have witnessed over the past 15 years. What is required now is to look into the eye of the right-wingers in Israel. You brought your country down, you brought your army to such an end, and you brought yourself as war criminal. To move out, you have legality, you have the what President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi asserted in his talk with Antonio Guterres day before yesterday, assuring that the two-state solution is the only way to the benefit of the Israeli people and to the Palestinian alike.
Right. That from Cairo, that was former Assistant Foreign Minister, His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Mohammed Higazi. We thank you so much for joining us on Qnews. And I guess that brings us to the end of our special coverage on the Middle East. Don't forget to follow Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Qnews EGY to stay informed. Many thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more updates on Qnews.